structured with HTML. Think of it like the blueprint of a building. It lays out where everything goes, how it's organized, and how it's presented to the user. But, unlike the physical blueprint of a building, HTML is flexible and interactive. You can use it to create simple, static pages, or combine it with other technologies like CSS and JavaScript to build complex, dynamic web applications. Now, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. But don't let the technical jargon scare you. The hypertext part means that HTML allows you to connect different pieces of information on the web through links. The markup language part means that it's a system of tags you use to structure and define your content. In this video, we'll cover the very basics of how HTML works, what a simple HTML document looks like, and how you can write your first lines of HTML code. We'll also go over some of the most commonly used HTML elements, like headings, paragraphs, images, and links. By the end of this video, you'll be able to create a simple, fully functional web page. So, let's get started and unlock the power of HTML together. So, let's dive deeper into what HTML actually is and why it's so important for web development. As I mentioned earlier, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, but what does that mean in practical terms? First, let's break down the idea of hypertext. The web is essentially a collection of documents, or web pages, that are linked together. Hypertext allows you to create links between these documents, making it easy to navigate from one piece of information to another. This linking of documents is what makes the web so powerful. It creates a network of interconnected content that users can access with a simple click. The second part, markup language, refers to the way HTML uses tags to structure and organize content on a web page. Think of it like this. HTML is the language we use to communicate with web browsers. These tags are the browser's instructions on how to display content, whether it's text, images, videos, or links. But here's the key thing to remember. HTML doesn't actually style or design the page. It's purely for structuring the content. The way a website looks, the colors, fonts, layouts, and visual design is controlled by CSS, which is something we'll dive into later. HTML is all about structure, not style. For example, when you want to create a heading on a web page, you'll use the h1 greater than tag for the largest, most important heading. If you want to add paragraphs of text, you'll use the p greater than tag. Want to insert an image? That's done with the im greater than tag. HTML also allows you to create lists, tables, forms, and much more. Essentially, it's the foundation upon which everything else like CSS and JavaScript sits. You can think of HTML as the skeleton of a web page, providing the structure and layout, while CSS and JavaScript act as the skin and muscles, adding style and interactivity. Without HTML, the web would be nothing more than a collection of unstructured data, so it's really the backbone of everything you see online. As we just saw in the basic structure example, each HTML document is built on a few essential tags that create the framework for everything else. Now, let's explore these elements a bit more deeply. First, the doc type HTML greater than declaration. This line doesn't directly affect how your web page looks, but it tells the browser that we're using HTML5, the latest version of the language. Without this declaration, older browsers might render the page incorrectly or fall back to outdated behavior. Next, we have the HTML greater than tag. This is known as the root element. Everything on your web page is enclosed between the opening HTML greater than tag and the closing HTML greater than tag. It signifies the beginning and end of your HTML document, telling the browser, here's where the HTML content begins and ends. Then we move to the head tag. The head is crucial because it contains information about your web page that isn't displayed to users but is vital to how the page is presented. Inside the head greater than tag, you can include the title of your page, links to style sheets or external files like fonts, and metadata that search engines or social media platforms use when displaying your site. For instance, adding a meta greater than tag with a description of your page can help improve its ranking on Google. The title greater than tag, placed inside the head, defines the title of the document. This is what appears in the Browsers tab and is also what users will see in their bookmarks or search engine results. Even though it's a small detail, getting the title right is important for user experience and SEO. Finally, we have the body greater than tag. As I mentioned earlier, this is where the actual content of your web page goes. Everything you want your users to see like text, images, videos, and forms will be placed between the body greater than tags. Each of these pieces of content is organized using HTML tags, and we'll now take a deeper dive into the most common tags you'll use when building a web page. Now that we understand the basic structure of an HTML document, let's dive into some of the most commonly used HTML tags you'll encounter when building a web page. These tags are the building blocks that allow you to create and organize content. The first tag we'll look at is the H1 tag. This is used to create headings, which are typically the largest, boldest pieces of text on your page. The H1 tag is reserved for the main heading of your page, the most important one, while smaller headings can be created using H2, H3 greater than, and so on, all the way to H6. Think of H1 as the title of a book and the other heading tags as chapter titles or subheadings. Using proper headings is important not only for readability but also for SEO. Search engines use headings to determine the content's hierarchy and to figure out what your page is about. Next, we have the P tag, which stands for paragraph. This is the tag you'll use to display regular blocks of text, like paragraphs in a blog post, article, or any textual content on your site. HTML automatically adds some space between paragraphs, but you can customize this with CSS later. Let's look at a real-world example of how these tags work together. Imagine you're creating a web page for a restaurant. You'd use the H1 tag to display the name of the restaurant at the top of the page. Below that, you'd use an H2 greater than tag for a section heading like our menu, and then use P tags to describe each dish. Now, let's talk about links. Links are one of the most important elements on any web page, and they're created using the A greater than tag, which stands for anchor. Links allow users to navigate from one page to another. For example, if you want to link to another page on your website, or even an external site like Google, you'll use the A greater than tag with an href attribute, which stands for hyperlink reference. Here's a simple example. A href equals https://www.google.com. Visit Google per A. In this case, visit Google is the clickable text that, when clicked, will take the user to Google's website. Links are a powerful way to create an interconnected web of content and provide navigation across your site. Next, let's move on to another key aspect of web pages: lists. HTML allows you to create two types of lists: ordered lists and unordered lists. Ordered lists are numbered, while unordered lists are bulleted. Let's take a look at how each one works. To create an unordered list, we use the UL greater than tag, which stands for unordered list. Each item in the list is then enclosed in the li greater than tag, which stands for list item. Here's an example: UL li first item, li second item less than, li third item, li UL. This would create a bulleted list with 3 items. If you wanted a numbered list instead, you'd replace the UL greater than tag with OL, which stands for ordered list. Everything else stays the same: OL greater than li first item, li second item, li third item, li OL. This creates a numbered list. Lists are a great way to organize information, like features of a product, steps in a process, or even links in a navigation menu. Another crucial element in HTML is the ability to display images. To insert an image into your web page, we use the im greater than tag. Unlike other tags we've looked at so far, the im greater than tag doesn't have a closing tag. Instead, we simply include the src attribute to specify the path to the image file. Here's an example: img src equals image.jpg alt equals a description of the image greater than. In this case, single quotes image.jpg is the file path, and the alt attribute provides a description of the image. This is important for accessibility, ensuring that users who can't see the image, for example, visually impaired users using a screen reader, can still understand the content. The alt attribute is also helpful for search engines to index your images. As we wrap up our exploration of HTML, it's essential to discuss some best practices that will make your code cleaner, more efficient, and easier to maintain. Writing good HTML not only helps you as a developer, but also improves the user experience for your visitors. First, always use semantic HTML. This means using the correct HTML tags that convey the meaning of the content. For example, use header greater than for your page header, footer greater than for your footer, and article greater than for articles. Semantic HTML makes your code more understandable for both humans and search engines, improving accessibility and SEO. Next, keep your code organized and properly indented. Good indentation improves readability, making it easier to spot errors or understand the structure of your document. Use consistent spacing, whether you prefer two spaces or four spaces for indentation. You might even consider using an HTML validator to check for errors and ensure that your code adheres to standard practices. Additionally, it's crucial to comment your code. Comments are notes you leave in your code that explain what certain sections do or remind you of things to consider later. In HTML, comments are created using comment here. While these comments won't be visible on the web page, they serve as helpful reminders for anyone reading your code, including your future self. Finally, remember to use alt attributes for all your images, as we discussed earlier. This not only aids in accessibility but also ensures that search engines understand what your images are about, which can help with SEO. By following these best practices, you'll write HTML that is not only functional but also clean, efficient, and easy to maintain. It sets a strong foundation for further learning and development in web technologies. That wraps up our introduction to HTML. Today, we covered the basic structure of an HTML document, learned about some of the most commonly used tags, and even created a simple web page with headings, paragraphs, links, lists, and images. HTML is the backbone of the web, and now that you understand its core elements, you're well on your way to building your own websites from scratch. In the next video, we'll dive deeper into creating more complex layouts using HTML5 elements and styling them with CSS. Remember, the best way to learn is by doing, so take what you've learned today and start experimenting with your own web pages. I'll see you in the next video.